if what you're doing right now feels right and you feel through this you can make impact to hundreds of millions of lives rather than sticking to a very small group, and if that vision aligns with what you really want to do, just go ahead with that. I mean, it's about your journey. You don't owe anything to anybody else. Yes, you are, as a responsible entrepreneur, you have to be answerable to the board, to the investor, to the team members, but first you have to be answerable to yourself.
Hello and welcome to the Startup Operator podcast. I'm Roshan Cariappa. I spoke to Saurabh Saxena, the founder and CEO of Uable, back in November 2020. Saurabh is a three-time entrepreneur and formerly built Vedantu, which is an edtech unicorn. Saurabh's initial thesis with Uable was to be able to teach higher order thinking like creativity and problem-solving skills to children, but he has since pivoted to building a social app exclusively for teens. On this podcast, I try to understand what goes into making a pivot like this, building for user personas who you have nothing in common with, and this whole phenomena of content, community, and commerce. This was a fascinating chat with plenty of insights that you may find useful. So let's get started on this episode of the Startup Operator podcast with Saurabh Saxena. Hey Saurabh, welcome back to the Startup Operator podcast. We missed you. So thanks so much again for making the time.
Hey Roshan, thanks a lot. Great being here. I mean, I still remember our conversation. It's super fresh in my mind in 2020, end of 2020. And great to be here. So much has changed in the world, and so has my journey at Uable as well. And excited to talk about it.
Yeah, excited to understand everything that's happened in that time. Yeah, so last time we spoke was in late 2020, and Uable was an edtech platform that was helping kids learn higher order thinking like creativity and problem solving and things to that effect. But it's very different today. And so, could you take us through that journey, and then I could follow up with some questions on the pivot itself?
Sure, Roshan. I think it has been an exciting adventure for me. So if you look at my own journey as an educator, entrepreneur, and as a parent, I think I always assess myself from these three angles. And when I started Uable's first version, the entire idea was that how can we solve the core problem of education around creative thinking, creative problem solving, critical thinking, etc., etc. And we did that, Roshan. We grew pretty fast. Our live learning programs were really well adopted across cities, across the country, rather in multiple countries at that point of time. But I realized, and I have my own daughter as well, who is 7 years old, and she was one of the users of our previous product. And now I get blamed by her that I pivoted into a teens only app. And why did I do that? And I keep telling her that once you turn 12, you can also start using the app. Don't worry about it. But I think while the impact was great, Roshan, we realized that to sell anything that is edtech, to sell anything that is live learning, you still need to have a sales force. You still need to convince a parent about buying something which is that high order value, and that is where a lot of business resistance started building into our model, because in India and even in other countries, the pecking order still is academics, things like coding, and then people think about creative thinking, critical thinking, etc. I knew this could be a roadblock, but when we started that model, we were very clear that we wanted to build out a social product for kids, but without the involvement of parents, it was becoming truly hard to do that. And we don't didn't want to get into a model where we only do one to many live classes, etc., for children, etc., which becomes very, very generalized, right? So for 6 months we continued on that model. Our revenue grew, business grew, we got commitment for our pre-series A funding. But then when we started scaling, again the same problems of having sales team, generating leads from other platforms, selling to parents, convincing them why they should pay for a live learning platform, etc., etc., started coming in. And then I realized that I had left the edtech world for a very simple objective, Roshan. And you, as an entrepreneur, you keep going back to your first principles thinking that why do you make certain choices? And the choice was made to really build a product that enables children, that enables either kids of 8 to 12 years or teenagers. I have worked with both of them in my past for 13 years. And that is when we sat together as a core team, founding team, and we decided that no, we never wanted to build a service business again. We came into this journey to build a product business, to build a social product. And for that, if we have to take a tough decision today, it's better to take it in the early parts of our journey, when our investors are showing a lot of faith, when the team is growing, it's a young team, great product and tech team. This is a good time to make that move. And in December that year, we decided that we will make the shift and we'll build a social product, but for teenagers, because we realized that that's the age group where we were seeing most traction, most independence, most rebellion, most that kind of thought process that I want to do something different. I don't want to be dependent on my parent, on my teachers. I want to break out. And I realized just going back to first principles, Roshan, gave me all the answers. I have worked with thousands and lakhs of teenagers during 13 years of being an educator. And then the pieces started fitting in. That then a social product for teenagers. We realized that teenagers have multiple passions: art and design, gaming, love and relationships, careers, skills, so many of those things, right? And education and learning is a small aspect of their life. How can we start influencing a wider aspect of their life and give them everything that they need in a social app which is only built for teenagers? And this vision took 3 or 4 months of brainstorming, testing, talking to our users, etc. But by March next year, we were very, very clear, and this is like 1 year back. So I'm talking about March 2021, is when we were absolutely clear about the pivot that we want to move and build a social product for teenagers. How will we monetize, etc.? That wasn't the thought at that point of time. We were absolutely focused on how do we create something that is social? How do we create something that teenagers want to use? And that's how the shift happened. So in January, we informed our existing users. We had thousands of existing users who were taking our services that we will be shifting to a teen only product and our live learning will be shut down. That was a big change management for us. So parents were very sad about it because they were loving it, kids were loving it. We took 4 months to phase out of that business model, and we launched our first version of the new app in around May last year. So yeah, it was 4 to 5 months of great transition, but that was the thought process, that build something that the user truly wants and build something directly for the user, not eliminating, that would be a negative word, but not needing other stakeholders and decision makers in between.
Right. So we're going to dive deeper into specifics of Uable and some of the use cases and so on. So tell me something. You have this realization and you kind of think that this is the right direction to head towards, right? How do you sell this pivot? Now, how do you go to investors and say that, hey, look, you gave me money for X, but I'm actually going to do Y? How do you sell this to your employees saying that, hey, I hired you to do X, but then we're going to do Y? And I can think of, probably 50 other nuances, right? I mean, which you have to change. So how do you sell this to the team?
I think, Roshan, it's very important to first sell it to yourself in a very convincing manner, right? The day an entrepreneur is convinced that he's taking the right step, and see, as entrepreneurs, we are always very delusionary people. I mean, we believe our own stories, and those stories also evolve with time. But once we start believing something, then selling it to team members, selling it to investors is the second step. The change management begins from there. The change begins from your own conviction, is what I've realized. I think from the team perspective, it has been a great journey for me. The kind of team I have had, the core of the team still remains the same. The lead of product, lead of engineering, lead of user experience, my co-founder who leads growth and strategy. I mean, all the core has been intact. While some members have changed because of the pivot, some new members have obviously come in. The team has expanded, but the team has always believed that we stand for something which is larger than a product, larger than a pivot. We always stood for a mission, and that was to set children free, to give them interest based learning, to give them a wider platform to express their skills, become creative. And while people can ask me that it was all about creative learning, now you're building a social product, but Uable is still all about expressing your creativity. We are a creators product. Teenagers are creators on the app, doing fundamentally great work, creating content across categories, expressing themselves, finding new friends, earning coins, spending coins. It's a new way of looking at creativity, is how we looked at it. And then this pitch, when we could sell it to ourselves, sell it to each other, when the team was completely convinced about it, strangely, my pre-Series A funding happened on this pivot, Roshan, and that's why it wasn't that difficult, because our pre-Series A funding was closed, our term sheet was signed, but we went back to the investors and I told them honestly that we are going to pivot. So if you are still convinced, you go ahead, or else we will still pivot and find other investors. And the investors showed a lot of faith here. I mean, they clearly told, no, we believe in you as a founder, we believe in you guys as a team. Pivots happen, but of course this is a great direction, far larger vision to build a social product for millions of teenagers in the country and beyond. Far exciting vision than rather building only a live learning platform with many other edtech players can do and were doing. So we were getting into a very unique white space. So investors believed in us. Rather, incidentally, our pre-series A funding got expanded and we got a new investor in form of Chirate, just because they were completely convinced about our new positioning. So it hasn't been that big a challenge from the investor side, because our team was always aligned. We always thought that we stand for something bigger than an existing product or an existing feature.
Right. No, I think, and pivots are more common than people think they are, right? I mean, 150 plus conversations on the podcast. Literally, no founder is working on the same idea that they started out with. I mean, it has all changed directions, and it ties to that YC motto of make something people want, right? And the deeper you get in that belief, in terms of understanding like what they want exactly, it sometimes can take you far from your initial idea or a thesis or whatever. The key is to keep validating that, right, and build conviction basically. So okay, having sold this new mission to the team, right, what do you do afterwards? So how do you change your team? What kind of structures change? How do you figure what are the new metrics, milestones, so on and so forth? There's
Yeah.
a whole lot of work that is required after that, right? So how do you go about doing that?
Whole lot of work, Roshan, whole lot of work, and that work is still going on. I mean, it's a continuous journey. No entrepreneur can say that I pivoted and I just found a sweet spot within a couple of months. There could be some great stories like that. That something is an overnight hit, but we all know, you will know that nothing is. Everything is all grunt work, hard work to follow user and figure out what they really need and want. Sometimes even users tell you wrong stories. You go to a user and they'll say, "Wow, this is a great idea. I want it." And when you build it, no one wants it, right? So the way we transited was, see, we were an education company at the core, but we actually made the move and we became a product company at the core. Product company which started thinking social. A lot of homework had to be done at my own end. I mean, last 1 year I have researched, gone deep into social products. Like, again, I left Facebook and Instagram about Facebook about 7 8 years back, Roshan, and I'm not a avid social media user. But when I realized that social products need to change, we have to start re-looking at how social medias and social networks will be built in future. Then was a time then I went back into these stories of how social networks were built, what is a vertical social network, what kind of DNA will we have to create, and it doesn't happen overnight. So I think telling the team again and again that we are a product first company, we will not rely on services, we will not rely on sales pitches, we will not rely on selling it to every customer that please buy a service and consume a service on the platform. We'll build a product that someday becomes self-propagating, a product that a teenager wants, a product that a teenager loves to use, a product that a teenager finds valuable every day, and because of these three things, a product that teenager tells about to other teenager friends as well. And that is how product driven growths happen. So I think the DNA movement is still happening, Roshan, but the first 6 months were super critical when we kept on telling ourselves, when we were still experimenting with a few hundred closed beta users, that we are social first, we are product first, we'll not do sales, we'll not do services, we'll not become an institution. We wrote down certain rules for ourselves. We wrote down our own thesis, and we said this is something that we'll stick with, and then with this mental model, we'll take most of our decisions. So I have, in my past, I have not created a mental model with this much sharpness and intensity that I did, because I knew this change management will not be easy. People will come, people will go, some team members will find that their jobs have become redundant. And I'm being honest. For example, sales team. For them, there was nothing left anymore because we were not selling anything. While two, three of them were such capable people that they're still in the team and running various part of our operations right now. But many of them had to be let go. But I can't tell you that day, and it was the toughest day when we pivoted and we told some of our team members to go, not because of financial reasons. We had done our pre-series A funding, and we had to tell them that we have funds, we have a great new direction, but for some of you whose skill doesn't match with the new job descriptions, we'll find you new jobs, but you might have to move on. And these were the toughest days, but I saw great support from even people who were leaving because they understood the very genesis, understood the very reason why some decisions were taken. They felt the pain of selling every day to a parent and convincing a parent why they should buy a creative product, etc., etc. So I think becoming product first, becoming social first, becoming absolutely user centric, and then managing the change. I think this was a super critical 3 4 steps in our journey, Roshan.
Right. And what would your advice be to entrepreneurs who are in a similar circumstance, right? Let's say they have some kind of a business and they're being swayed in a different direction, and there's always this dichotomy, right? I mean, do you leave what is kind of working to explore this something which is new and promising, and it's tugging at your heart, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
it
it's a
is.
heck of a decision to make. It's a very impactful decision, right? So, what would your advice be?
And it's a very tough decision, Roshan. As you rightly said, it's very, very, very tough. It's very easy to come in an interview and talk about it, but when you're going through that period, so first of all, my advice to an entrepreneur will be it's okay. Don't be super harsh on yourself. Entrepreneurs have a habit of being very, very harsh on themselves. They get into a very, very closed shell at times when these things are happening. When you are confused yourself, and I have seen those confused days while I was pivoting. Am I making the right decision? My business is already generating revenue. I have already users on board. I have a way to scale this business. I have done that in past, and now I'm seeing a bigger opportunity which is more fundamentally aligned to what I really wanted to build. But I have to let go of a business. I have to let go of an opportunity as well. It is not easy. So the first step was not being super harsh on yourself, taking it a little easy, taking a step back, and telling yourself from a first principle perspective why are you doing this. If you're able to answer that why very, very sharply for yourself, then it's easy to tell your team, tell your investors, tell your users why are you doing something that you're doing. That would be my first advice to entrepreneurs. Sometimes we just go into a shell, start cursing ourselves for various decisions that we make. Hindsight is great sometimes, but hindsight could be harsh because you start blaming yourself that I could have done this 6 months back, 12 months back, why now? While you learn from hindsight, but you don't take regrets from hindsight. I think that is very, very a big lesson that I have myself learned, Roshan. And secondly, if you're convinced about a new direction, you have to just keep going because you are not your product, you are not your business. Entrepreneurs are here to solve problems, and those problems change. Sometimes you go with a hypothesis, you go with an assumption that the solution that I am taking to the market is the best solution. Every entrepreneur at every stage thinks like that. That is why we are entrepreneurs, right? We believe in our own story. But sometimes those stories don't pan out. So instead of creating a story that is bound to fail, it's better to change your story, learn from these lessons, understand the user, and get into a change management process and pivot rather than just having a confirmation bias and just struggling with something that you are trying to build and you're not convinced about. I think these are two, three lessons in my mind, Roshan.
Right. And when you would have taken this decision, right? I mean, you would have spoken to plenty of people in the ecosystem and so on. So, do you remember, a good piece of advice that you received on this?
I think same advice. I have a few friends who are entrepreneurs. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the biggest support system for an entrepreneur. People who have always believed in me that okay, you will do something great because you are on a very, very different kind of mission after your edtech journey of 13 years. And I went back to those two three friends, had a discussion that this is a thought process, and I always got this advice. And these are also experienced entrepreneurs who have been through this. So taking advice from somebody who has seen these similar experiences is super important. Somebody who has not been through it just generally won't give that advice, or even if that advice is right, you won't believe that somebody because you really respect people for their experiences. So I went back to people. There's one of my friends who has seen pivots in life, who had just exited his own startup a couple of years back, and he was trying to build something very, very different. And we both were sitting over a drink, and I told him this is what is going on. And it was the same advice that if what you're doing right now feels right and you feel through this you can make impact to hundreds of millions of lives rather than sticking to a very small group, and if that vision aligns with what you really want to do, just go ahead with that. I mean, it's all about you. At the end of the advice was it's about your journey, right? You don't owe anything to anybody else. Yes, you are, as a responsible entrepreneur, you have to be answerable to the board, to the investor, to the team members, but first you have to be answerable to yourself. I still remember that advice, that if you're answerable to yourself and if you're at peace with yourself, then you can fight the world, right? Or else if inside you're not believing your own story, it's very, very hard to sell anything to anyone else.
Yeah. I think one of the most important things that an entrepreneur has is the conviction, right? Is the deep conviction. And yeah, yeah. So, all right, let's talk about Uable today. What are some of the common use cases? What are the kind of adoption that you're seeing on the platform? And where are you headed?
Yeah, very exciting, Roshan. I mean, the day I still remember, we took the decision of becoming a social product for teenagers. Last 12 months have been super rewarding, great adventure for my team, for myself. Learnings have been immense. Today, Uable stands as the one and only super app for teenagers with social at its core. So you can think of all the social use cases for a teenager. When I've worked with teenagers, I realized that their life is not bound only to education. Exams, books, learning is a part of their life, but teen years, as a phase of our life from 13 to 19, and we both, if we reminisce over those times in our life, were very, very conflicting years. we were changing, our bodies were changing, our minds were changing, the social fabric changes, new friends, new classes, new challenges, conflicts. I mean, teenagers these days, teenagers go through depression, the teenagers go through so much breakups, crushes, they have to go through exams as well at the same time. Then the conflict of my parents want me to become an engineer, but I am great at art and design, I am a great creator. Today teenagers are so inspired by becoming Instagrammers, YouTubers. The world is changing around them, right? How do they handle this conflict? How do they still find a platform where they can express themselves, make new friends, follow their interests? Those interests could be gaming, art and designs, other careers, skills, love and relationships. It could be anything. It could be startups and money. Teenagers are interested in so many different things today. So we realize giving them a platform which is only for teens, because teens, Roshan, don't relate with kids and they don't relate with adults. That's a typical age group where you are neither an adult nor a kid anymore, right? And we realize that teenagers are flocking out of existing social networks big time. Facebook, they're not there. Instagram, they've started flocking out globally, because at the end of the day, while they find relevant content on these platforms, but it's not teen relevant, it's not teen only. So teenagers are flocking out to the to platforms like Discords of the world to build their own communities around gaming, around art and design, around general chit chat, around passions like anime, Korean pop, Korean drama, web series, movies, etc., etc., learning, exams, study rooms. The use cases were different, and we said, how can we bring the life of a teenager to one app and tell them ki, hey, this is your place. You'll find your existing friends, you'll find your new friends here, you'll find a plethora of interests here, you'll find relevant content by creators to consume, you'll find communities to engage with, and you'll find a gamified journey which no other social platform gives you. You do social activities, you earn coins, and when you earn coins through positive social karma, that's the internal economy that we have built in Uable, just like any other game. Because teenagers is a gaming generation. They understand gamification. So for every good thing that they do on the app, they earn something called Uable coins, and they can spend Uable coins to unlock rewards, to unlock deals by brands, to unlock content by creators. That's the journey that we have built, right? From following your interest, making new friends, consuming content, to using your coins to engage in contextual commerce. I think it's an
Right.
end-to-end journey for a teenager.
So, how do you put yourself in the shoes of a teenager? I can quite imagine how weird it must be from a product perspective, right? I mean, to think like a teenager, or I mean, I'm not even sure if we're fully capable of doing that, right? So, how do you boil down those insights that can feed into your product and so on and so forth?
Great question, Roshan. That and that's a question that I was very aware about from day one. That I'm building for a user that is half of my age, even lesser than that, and this is a user that has also changed over last few generations. Right, teenagers have evolved, their taste, their likings, dislikes have also changed. While I can always go back to my own teenage years and remember fundamentally how we used to be, but today's teenager is very different. So I think bringing that detachment and truly becoming a product driven company is where we really found our answer. We said we'll be super user obsessed. We'll not bring our own biases into decision making. We'll do something, but from day one, we'll do it with users. And we created a community of users in our very first month of this pivot. And we said, you are our co creators. This was called Uable Co Creators Community, UCC. And we had a very small group of teenagers on Discord, which I found through our network, through online marketing, through various schools, etc. And we told them, hey, let's build a product together, and you will be our early users. You'll give us feedback, what you like, what you don't like. I think that was, if I look back, we still have made a lot of mistakes over the last 12 months, Roshan, and learned from those mistakes. But this was one of the most pivotal things that we did that still serves us beautifully. We still have that co-creators community that still helps us. Now the entire community has moved to our app, our own app. We don't use Discord anymore. But the feedbacks that I used to get every day, from day one, I used to conduct live sessions with my users every evening, that we have released this feature. What do you think about it? How are you using it? Okay, you have used it like this, but the usage data shows me this. So as I said, sometimes user will tell you something, but they'll use the same thing in a very different way. So these were the two pivotal decisions that will follow a user from day one, and at the same time we'll keep seeing their usage data on the app and trying to merge these two. I think this was very important. And spending time with teenagers, Roshan, on Discord during live sessions helped us to really empathize with them. I think while we cannot think like a teenager, but as a product builder, you need to have a lot of empathy for the user, right? And that's the first rule of building, first rule of user experience, first rule of a product maker, right? And I think that helped us really well. Every day interacting with 50 100 teenagers on early days, and then later on I myself became a creator on the app. You can become a creator. For example, if you run your own podcast tomorrow, you want to showcase or help teenagers learn the podcasting skills, you can become a creator on Uable app today as an adult, right? So I became a creator myself, and I started using my own app, started interacting with users from day one, and I still do. I have 60 70,000 teenagers who follow me on the app. I daily interact with them, and that is how I've learned my own lesson here. You're building for teenagers, just keep following them. You can't bring your own biases and baggages to product building.
Right. So how does user acquisition work for something like a new innovation like Uable, right? I mean, um, again, it seems like a bit of a tricky problem, right? I mean, how do you attract these folks?
Interestingly, that hasn't been very tough, Roshan, because we truly believe today, while 6 months back we were not there, but today the brand positioning, the product positioning is something that we have been able to really crack. Yes, product overall usage, overall metrics are still optimizing. We are trying to increase engagement, trying to solve certain challenges on the app as well. But our positioning is on dot. When our thesis was that teens are looking for a private social space that is built for them. That was the core thesis, an exclusive space that is built for teenagers. And that positioning has worked so beautifully, Roshan, that if I tell a teenager that here you'll only find teenagers, you'll find clubs around interests like gaming, art and design, crushes, relationships, movies, anime, K-pop, it just sells. They say, wow, does this world even exist for me? If it does, I want to download and try your app. So our cost per install from January became 1/20th, just because our positioning became sharper, right? We do a simple ad on Instagram, we get our users. We go to a school, we get our users. We get about 30 to 40% users from their friend circles through referrals, organic. While retention and engagement of users is a continual problem for a product manager to solve, but actually acquisition has not been a problem for us since November and December, because our positioning has just worked beautifully. Finally, we know that our promise is something that the users want to listen. Does every user find exactly that in the product is a long term problem to solve, because you cannot cater to every kind of the user. But any teenager you pick from a tier 1 town, tier 2, tier 3, and if you show him our ad, our positioning, teens only community, follow your interest, make new friends, earn you coins, and buy your favorite products. Every teenager wants to do these three things. As simple as
Right.
that.
So, what is that aha moment for a user on the Uable app, right? I mean, I remember listening to Chamat's presentation on growth, right, at Facebook, and they figured that if a user, is able to get 8 friends within a week, and then it kind of builds that virality, and they're committed to the platform, basically, right? So, what are those things that have worked for you at Uable?
So interestingly, we have taken the other way here, Roshan. So while now we are launching inner communities and inner circles also, where we are asking teenagers to build their own clubs, inviting their own friends from schools, etc. That inner circle formation that helped Facebook to become what they became is something that now we are doing. But our promise was, we realized for teenagers, making new friends and doing new stuff, following new interest was more attractive. They were already connected with their existing friends on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. So same promise couldn't have worked for us. So I think that was a flip, right? We tried
I
for two,
think
three
that,
months.
yeah, so that itself shows the generation gap, right? I mean, I think for you and I mean, why would we go on a platform where we can't find any of our friends? But then, I mean, that could be the opposite pitch for teenagers, right? I mean, they obviously want to go to a place where they can find all new people.
Exactly opposite, Roshan. And this was an aha moment for me, that okay, teenagers are not looking for their existing friends, while now the teenagers who have been on the platform, they want to invite their existing friends now when they have some influence on the platform, right? But from day one, their biggest thing on the wish list was, I want to pursue new interests. I want to find people who share my interests, because my friends don't, right? I am interested in gaming, but my friends are interested in exams right now. So I want to join a community of gamers who understand that I want to play BGMI all night, right? So that was the aha moment, that teenagers are actually not looking for the Facebook story anymore. They want newer friends, they want newer canvas to express themselves, they want to find out a new identity for themselves. And that is what we gave them. And for them, the aha moment. So this was an aha moment for us, that okay, our users are looking for new friends, so let's give them new friends, let's give them new communities. Now, giving them new friends is not as easy as telling them as soon as you get 7 8 new friends you will stick on the platform. So we realized that for us, friends wala journey wasn't a aha moment anymore, but we built gamification. So earning coins and redeeming coins for something was the aha moment for our users. That they said, okay, I created a post, I created a dialogue, I created a debate on the platform. There are various social ways to interact with each other. You can initiate a dialogue, discuss with other users, just like Discord. You can post something on our feed, and other users will see your content, react, comment on your content. And if your post or dialogue is great, you earn Uable coins through that, right? Aha moment for user was to earn the first set of Uable coins. It could be 50 coins, 100 coins, and use their coins to unlock some reward on the app. As soon as users did that, they said, wow, I am bringing social value to a new platform because it's like a new society. So I'm creating value for them. These are not my existing friends. And when they see value in my content, I get to earn coins and I get to use coins. Users who earn coins and redeem coins, their retention on the app is like 3 to 4 times any other user who is unable to get into that loop. So I think that was the aha moment for us. And to complete this journey, a user needs to be on the app for 7 to 8 days, is what we have realized.
Right. So generally, I mean, parents like to keep their kids away from social media, or at least they want to moderate their usage, right? It's because I mean they feel that there might be a lot of abuse or harmful content, and so on and so forth, right? So how are you managing those elements of the app itself? I mean, how are you managing the moderation and preventing misuse and so on?
A question that I always get asked, Roshan, and a very important question. Luckily, the first 6 months, Roshan, for us, when we were a closed beta app from March to October last year, these were the areas of focus. While our app was not super feature rich, it was a very simplistic app at that point of time. The major focus, Roshan, was how do we build a safe space for teenagers? Because it's a very sensitive age, bullying, wrong conversations, inappropriate users. Because this is such an impressionable age, you show something wrong to this age group and their minds just latch onto it, right? That's why from day one, we have focused on building safe space. How have we done that? Our content from day one has been moderated. Initially, we used to have people as moderators, while still some of the content is moderated by humans. But now, 70% of our content goes through machine learning and AI based algorithms for auto moderation. We have learned what kind of content is right for the teenagers over a 6 to 12 months period, trained our machines, trained our algorithms accordingly, and made a system that only teen safe content goes into the app. So, any image, any video, any meme, teenagers consume mostly short videos and memes on our app. Everything goes through an AI based moderation tool, and some of the content that our AI doesn't understand, that still goes to some humans who moderate that content and keep passing on that feedback to our AI system to become smarter every day. So anything that you'll see on our discover feed, for example, there's a content feed on our app, or any dialogue that you see, any debate that you see on the app, everything runs through moderation. And this moderation has become super fast. We have a great tech team who has dedicated themselves, a part of them, towards building moderation tools. So content is all moderated. So parents can be rest assured that any content that their teenager is seeing is teen safe. We are a safe social network for teenagers. We are not a typical entertainment app or an app where we'll throw anything to make them addicts to content. We are giving them high value content around careers, skills. Yes, entertainment is there. Entertainment is important to their lives. So, but entertainment in the right way. You'll see stand-up comedy videos also, but which are safe for teenagers to watch. Right? You'll see all sorts of content, but which go through a teen safety layer. After that, also, Roshan, if something gets passed, if an inappropriate user joins the app and creates any sort of inappropriate conversation on the app, it's a social app, something can go wrong. We have worked with 1,000 plus teenagers who are our community managers, Roshan, and we have built that community from day one. They have the power to flag off users, flag off content, request for user suspension, block a user. So we have moderators across our clubs who are managing the app today, and we have built powers for them in the product itself to manage this. And the first comment that we get from every teenager is, "Wow, this is such a safe app. I have new friends, but I feel so safe here that I can express myself in a new space." Right? And I think we have worked very very hard for that. So parents can be rest assured, a teenager can be rest assured that this is her safe space. They can truly rely on our safety mechanisms.
Right. What are your thoughts on content, community, and commerce? The three C's, they seem to be really prevalent right now across a range of businesses, right? I mean, I was talking to someone in D2C, for example, and they're kind of using a confluence of these in their business. And then I see sort of the same thing here as well, right, with Uable coins and everything. In your research, I mean, what are those two or three trends that you figured that is causing a convergence on these things?
Yeah, Roshan, I think we could have taken the route of becoming content only or community only or commerce only. But now what we have realized times have changed. 10 to 15 years back when any business was being built, the focus was only on one thing. You either build a commerce first business or you build communities or you build a content first business. Today, because of social media's impact over the last 15 years, the world has become so open, Roshan, that as you rightly said, even a D2C brand that sells products digitally directly to consumers cannot stay away from community and content anymore. So that's why content community commerce have become so interwoven that you don't do commerce without a community. Community adds value to commerce, and you cannot do commerce without content. We just flip it around. We are a social first app where teen communities and teen relevant content is the thing that teenagers come for, because they come for social interactions. They earn coins through it, and they get most value for those coins when they get great deals, discounts, and digital content to buy with it, right? These three things together form a user journey for us, and we are seeing the users who engage in all three, their retention and engagement is almost 6 to 7 times on our app. And users are telling us vehemently that I don't want a community only app. I want a super app where I come and I find everything for myself, because it's a vertical network, Roshan. Either you build one thing for various age groups, or if you're focusing on one age group, you give them multiple things so that their journey is far more stronger, deeper on an app. That's why for a teenager, a journey might start from content, go into community, and end at commerce, and the loop continues. For a teenager, the journey might start by joining a club, finding a new friend, building a community, then come to content and go to commerce. But these three are almost inseparable in the Uable app. As I said, for a user, the aha moment was the economy, earning coins and redeeming stuff with coins. And teenagers are crazy about it. And that's why all the three C's go hand in hand on our app.
Right. So this new direction, right, I'm sure that you have to be a different entrepreneur for this, right? Although it's your third time with Uable, right? So what are some of those high level challenges that you're solving for as a founder yourself? How are you kind of up leveling yourself for the road ahead?
Yeah. Wow, I think lot there, Roshan. So first thing is dropping my own baggages. I think that is very very important. For 13 years, I was an edtech entrepreneur, and sometimes those baggages just take hold of you. Now I have realized that maybe yes, education has always been my passion. Edtech was great. I loved building what I built for 13 years, and but now dropping those baggages became super important for me. While still I'm fighting a mission for teenagers and kids, but I feel social is the way to go about it, giving them that freedom, giving them their own voice, giving them a creators platform, helping them do whatever they want to do in their life. It comes from my education experience, but the way an education system worked, I had to drop a lot of baggages of it. So dropping those baggages was the first step. Then changing my own image in the eyes of various other people, team, investors. Sometimes the ecosystem also builds an image of you, that hey, you have been an edtech entrepreneur. So if you're doing a you're a serial entrepreneur, if you're doing a third startup, why is it not standard edtech? I had deals on the table saying you raise a seed round of these many millions if you're building edtech, and I would tell them that if I had to build edtech, I would have continued with my previous co-founder's previous business. That was not the idea of doing Uable, right? So dropping that baggage, changing my image in the eyes of various people in the ecosystem, because ours is a very close knit ecosystem. Everybody tracks everybody else. So dropping that image and telling people, hey, entrepreneurs can change, entrepreneurs can pivot, and if missions change, then entrepreneurs can learn. And as far as learning is concerned, becoming product first as an organization, Roshan, and building a vertical social network. I have gone deep into these two things big time. That you understand how a social fabric works. I was not a social media user for 7 years, and then building a social media product. I think it was a huge challenge, but I'm loving it today because I'm building a very different kind of social media platform today. I'm a user. I go to my app 4 5 times in a day. I interact with teenagers every day. I post content every week as a creator, understanding nuances of creator economy, of social economy, coins, etc. And now Web 3.0, where we might usher as well in 6 to 12 months' time. I think learning new things, Roshan, you would agree, for any entrepreneur, learning new things every day is super important. We cannot stagnate. And I think last 1 year I have learned that you just cannot stagnate one bit. So learning about social platforms, economy, currencies, learning about product first approaches, going back to my books that I used to read. I've reread certain books again from a very, very different lens, and I found new lessons in the very same books that I read 10 years back, the Bibles of the startup world, right? But now I have read those books from a very different lens, and I'm a pretty new person in the last 1 year myself.
Awesome. So since you mentioned ecosystem, right? Last couple of years have been kind of a roller coaster ride for the Indian startup ecosystem. What are your thoughts in general? I mean, when you talk to some of the newer founders, what do you get? What do you sense from them in terms of their ambition and how much smarter folks are right now?
Oh, much smarter than I was when I got into this ecosystem, for sure, Roshan. I think, and that's a great sign. I mean, I advise certain entrepreneurs. While I'm not a typical angel investor, I do some passion investments as well on the side. I don't find much time, but in edtech, fintech, etc., I love talking to new entrepreneurs as well. What I've realized, folks have become much more smarter than I was when I came to Bangalore in 2011. Startup was a new term for me in 2009, honestly, and learning it by making so many errors. Today, even teenagers are coming up with business ideas which are much more comprehensive, Roshan, which are sharper. They understand business, they understand the nuances of business, how to raise funds, how to build a product. And that's just wonderful to see, right? An ecosystem where I entered in 2011 and now in 2022, I meet younger founders and I feel, wow, you guys already know your stuff. You know the problems you want to solve. You have read your books, you have done your researches, you have seen you have heard the podcast, you have taken the YC courses, etc., etc. And that's great. I think ecosystem has evolved. While we always look at external parameters like funding, how many startups have got funded, how many startups have grown, but you look at a young founder today and a young founder of 2011-12 when I came to Bangalore, the difference is just enormous. I feel these founders are very, very aggressive, very, very sharp about the problem definition and the kind of product that they want to build, extremely ambitious. And that is the only point where I always suggest them that be ambitious, but in the rush of funding, etc., don't lose focus on your user, because they have much higher potential than we had 10 years back. So they should not lose on their potential just in the rush of fundraise and running that race. That has been my suggestion to them. Otherwise, they are doing much better than we used to do.
Yeah. All right, that's a great note to end the podcast on, Saurabh. Again, it's been fun chatting with you. The second time around on the podcast, and who knows, maybe I mean we'll do a third time around in a few months of a few years time, right? So wonderful hearing about Uable and this new direction that you've taken. All the best for everything that you have coming up.
Thanks a lot, Roshan. I'll look forward to the next time, and I hope I don't come up with another pivot. So, looking forward to that. Thank you, Roshan. It's always great talking to you. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.